I want you to begin to believe in your country. You don't have to be a politician to understand that the nation called Nigeria is your country. You were born here. You were raised here. There is a divine reason why God chose of all nations of the world to put you in this country. He knew there was the US. He knew there was the UK. He knew there was France and Russia. He knew there was China. He knew there was Britain. He knew there was Brazil. He knew there was South Africa. He put you in Nigeria for a purpose. And you must appreciate the fact that that divine purpose means well. Your future is attached and connected with Nigeria as a country. Genesis 12 verse 2. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. God spoke this word concerning you, and God spoke this word concerning our country as a nation, to make us great and to make us a blessing. Generations to come, people will bless this. People will bless you because you will be a blessing to people also. We have a country, and that country is Nigeria. Even if you do travel out of the borders of this country, you still will be identified as a Nigerian. You could bleach your screens if you want, you still will be identified as a Nigerian. It's embedded in your DNA. That's how you've been formed and fashioned. You are a Nigerian. We must be proud of our heritage. Every time our generations have been exposed to television where we watch and wish like we were, or wish that we were from some other countries, or we were some other people. But no matter how much you wish about that, you're still going to be the same person that you are. You're still going to be Nigerian. You need to be proud of who you are. Proud of where you come from. Proud of what you have achieved, and believe God that you will achieve even more and you will be better. We do have a country. We might not have met all the expectations of the world, but we do have a country. That country is one of the most populous black countries in the world. One in which a lot of people cherish and long to be a part of. People have been traveling, leaving their countries to come into Nigeria. Despite all the challenges we've had in this country, people still come into the borders of this country. You should be a proud Nigerian. It's a great nation. Nigeria is a great nation. Ezekiel 37:2. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be the king to them all. And there shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all. A lot of people have spoken about the division of this country. Many have predicted and many have prophesied. But we stand for a one united Nigeria. There were people who fought, shed blood to ensure that this country remain as one. This country is not going to be divided across religious lines or ethnic lines or tribal lines. This country will remain one. It becomes our responsibility as Nigerians to ensure that we do not divide this country. Very recently, the people of Scotland decided to vote in a referendum, and they choose to remain in Europe. They could as well have chosen to be divided without wars and bloodshed, but they choose to stick together as one nation and as one country. Too many lines of division in Nigeria causes a lot of things today. We are all fighting amongst ourselves because of all the divides that we have in this country. You go into the universities and right now you hear indigents and all that. Trying to get jobs and indigents and that. Ethnic divides in the country. Religious divides in the country. We should learn to live as one people, where the person from the north is your brother and the person from the south is your brother. The person on the east is your brother. Where you look at every one of us as people who have come from one source and one parent and one God. Nigeria is a country. Today we celebrate the 54th independence of Nigeria. But we need to be independent, not just from colonial masters. We need to be independent from the mind that holds us captive. The mind that tells us that everybody else is inferior to you, and that everybody else does not matter or doesn't count because they have probably not attained to the level of education that you have attained to. The mind that tells you that the man who sleeps on the street is not a human. He is a complete being. Even if he hasn't achieved what you have achieved, you must free yourself from the mind that thinks less of your brother and that thinks less of your sister. To live together as a country, we learn to be like Samaritans, where you don't see a wounded person and abandon the persons on the road because you're a Levite or a priest, or you have to attend to such busy schedule, where you'll be able to mend the wound of somebody else and be able to pay bills for somebody else until those people come to the level where they too can pay bills for others and sustain other people. We have a country, and the country cannot exist as long as we continue to live with divides. Division has been one of the biggest challenges in this nation, where people who should have helped to sustain the unity of the country have only been heard using utterances that have divided the country the more. Set young people to fight against themselves, set people at war. We've had leaders who rather would have sought to put people, young people, in directions or in places of employment where they will be of meaning to the country. We have seen them put arms, perhaps give them arms, send them to fight, instigate them with words and put them in war to fight against themselves. This ought not to be. Scripture tells us that a kingdom that is divided against itself will not stand. We need to be as one nation and as one people in this country called Nigeria. This is our country, and this is our home. There's a blessing for this country. Jeremiah 2 verse 7, the Lord said, "And I brought you into this plenteous country to eat the fruit thereof and the goodness thereof. But when ye entered, ye defiled my land and made my heritage an abomination." God has given us a privilege to be Nigerians and has blessed us in a country that is rich in crude, rich in minerals, rich in a whole lot of things. Our lands are fertile enough for agriculture. But where are the blessings that God has given to us as a people? All we have today in the media is nothing but blame games, where one politician or one leader points a finger at the other, and where one person points a finger at the other person. For any Nigerian politician to step out and try to claim to be the holiest of all politicians, it's like a prostitute claiming not to have or to be a virgin. There's so much deception in our policy, in our government today. One person wants to divert attention to the other to make you think that the other is the reason why the nation is failing. You ask for accountability, and these are the same people in government failing everybody. We might be convinced to believe the president is the only problem in Nigeria, but we have a Senate, we have a House of Rep, we have state governments, we have council, we have councillors, we have local government chairmen, we have house assemblies. We have people sitting in all of these places earning salary on a daily basis, people who ought to stand for the people who cannot afford to speak for themselves. These are representatives of the Nigerian people. We can't just keep pointing hands at one person or the other and accusing generations that have gone past. This is our own time. If we continue to speak of generations that have gone and government that have polluted our own resources or wasted it, we will never change. We've got to look at ourselves and tell ourselves, now is the time to make a change. We could go ahead and have 1 million concerts on Independence Day. Are we where we ought to be many years after we have come through this? Are we where we ought to be? How many presidents have we had? How many vice presidents have we had? How many governors have we had? Do we have the same position? Can we attest of improvements in our universities and in our school, in our colleges, in our nations, in our companies, in our offices? We need to quit the blame game. When the North blames the South and the South blames the East and the East blames the West. Where we fight wars on polarities and ethnic divides, when we are supposed to be standing up to defend the country, where even a Northerner can be rich and wealthy and a Southerner can be rich and wealthy, where everyone around us can be rich and wealthy because God so blessed this nation to make it so. It's about time the church itself rises to its own responsibility. It's about time the church rises to its responsibility. We are full of churches, mosques, and religious organizations who don't care whether righteousness is planted in a nation or not. We're more concerned about our stained glass windows and our big buses and cars, and we are more concerned about our AC-filled halls, that we care less whether we have a nation that is on the shoulder of Jesus Christ. For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder. We raise in a denomination of religious people who do not care about the planting of righteousness and the establishment of godliness in the nation. We've seen a decay in the activities of even ruling priests and governments and church leaders. We want a change. We want you who will be the next man in government. We want you who will be the next boss in the big office. We want you who is going to be destined to be the ruler and the leader in tomorrow's government. We want you to put righteousness as part of your rule and part of your law. Establish it where you are. Let people know that evil cannot prevail over good. Proverbs 14 verse 34. Scripture tells us righteousness exalted a nation. Righteousness exalted a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Our nation will continue to crawl as it continues to live in bribery. Our nation will continue to crawl as the civil service continues to be full of people who do not respect decency in their offices. The criminal you find in the street today, that criminal becomes the leader in tomorrow's government. The one who gives bribe to the police officer becomes the one who becomes the local government chairman and a councillor, and perhaps even the governor and the president. The one who receives bribe as a police officer eventually becomes the one who is appointed to track criminals and to arrest those who break the law. We live in a country where even law enforcement agents drive against traffic. We live in a society where they don't even expect or respect the rules that they even establish themselves. Where the people that have the oversight to watch that people keep the law are the very ones who break the laws themselves. And you as an average Nigerian cannot even speak, because if you speak you get brutalized and you get completely victimized for standing for the truth. But we believe that this country one day will go through a cleansing. And how that's going to happen is when you and I will sit in today, make a change in your neighborhood. If you can change one person, if I can change one person, if somebody who's sitting next to you can change one person, if we as a people can affect one life at a time, if that one person that has been transformed gets into the government, we have a changed man in government. Change is not only going to take place on billboards. You can have the same old criminals come into government and give you a pronouncement of change. Change is not just a slogan. Change is much more than a slogan. It is an attitude, it's a lifestyle. If you don't change from the day-to-day things you do as you speak in respect to other Nigerians, you cannot bring a change to government. You cannot effect a change in governance. You cannot change a people. You cannot change a nation. Corruption is a common enemy in our country. We can point fingers to those in government today, but we put them there by our votes. We put them there because when we were asked to go vote, some of us didn't even care to vote. Some of us, when we went there, we voted for the money. We voted for the gifts. We voted for the things that blinded our eyes, forgetting that when you do take a bag of rice or you take a little gift, you are giving yourself 4 more years of living under tyranny. If you have a government that you do not like, that's the government you got because you deserve the government. You choose the government. How you choose a government is when you fail to change your neighbor. You fail to change your brother. You fail to change the people around you. You make a government because these people will be the same ones to form a government. I get so tired of people who keep blaming the government for being responsible, forgetting that the government is made up of people. Democracy is a government of the people. It's of the people and it's by the people. Where there is no people, there is no government. What kind of people becomes tomorrow's leaders? Look around your street. What you see on the street today, that's the next governor. That's the next president. That's the next local government chairman. That's the next councillor. That's the next senate. If you cannot make a change today with the people you have around you, then do not hope to have a better country. 54 years and going, and we're still struggling to come up with a system that can punish corruption in a nation like Nigeria. 54 years in the making, after we were freed, we still look like people in bondage, in captivity. 54 years and we can have schools that we can be proud of. 54 years and we cannot have stable power supply. We're running this meeting right now on fuel on a generator set. 54 years and going. And I can challenge you that the next 54 years can remain the same if you as a Nigerian don't stand up to make the change and make the difference. We ask the church to take the gospel to the streets. We ask the church to step out to preach this gospel. We ask the church to make evangelism, because one man that you convert to the Lord could be the saving of this country from one robber, from one thief, from one liar, from one deceptive fellow. One man that you get saved today is a salvation to a nation. We want to have leaders that we can be proud of. We want to have governors that we can be proud of. We want to have people, not people who come on air every time telling us how to hate the other leaders, but people who by their lifestyle can teach us good examples and what to do, and not just by their words, but because they show us in their attitude. I hate the idea of getting to hate another politician because one politician told me to hate the fellow. It's a monster in our government. It's a monster in our system. It's all about the social media. It's all over Facebook. It's all over Twitter. Most of the persons who are to love one person against the other are doing so because they are paid to do so, not because they are satisfied by the services of the people, but because they are blinded by gifts. The scripture tells us that gifts blinds people. We continue to take these bribes and all these, and we claim to want to have a nation. We claim to want to have a country. For rulers, Romans 13 verse 3, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Will thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. I don't stand within a place where people abuse the president of the country. I don't stand in a party of people who ridicule the people in authority. I don't stand in a place who mock the governor. I don't stand in the midst of people who insult people that are in positions of power and speak evil of them and castigate them and curse them and abuse them. I don't stand for that. I stand for the fact that if you think they are evil because you put them there. They're evil because some other Nigerians are letting evil strive. Rulers are not a terror to good works. If one evil ruler is surrounded by 100 good citizens, he cannot do evil. Potiphar's wife dragged Joseph into the bedroom and hoping to have sex with him. And Joseph stood and said to the woman, how can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? There is not one evil ruler that can implant unrighteousness and evil in this nation if he is surrounded by decent, honest Nigerians. We could find it easy to point fingers, but I can tell you, evil remains in the country because Nigerians seem to like evil. We have terrorism in a country that never knew terrorism before. We fight insurgencies. We've lived side by side with Muslims and people who worshipped God in all the faith or religion. We've seen countless numbers of religious wars in this country. But we have strived to live with our neighbors and live beyond it. But there comes people who want us to believe the government is the disease in the system. Here comes the regular average Nigerian who have gone out to import terror And they want you to believe the rulers are the terrorists. But these are average Nigerians who should be standing for a common nation. They import terrorism into this country. Countless numbers of Nigerians have died. Innocent Nigerians who have committed no crime have been killed in the name of a fight of a religious war that makes absolutely no sense to any of us. Makes absolutely no sense to any of us. And today, on the record, we are so grateful that the Nigerian army is beginning to have victory over those insurgents. I read in the paper, seen in the news, the victory of the Nigerian army, and I can't believe how some politicians would spend the bulk time abusing the army have never even come out to appreciate the fact that the Nigerian army has gained success against the insurgent. It shows you that the problem we have in Nigeria is Nigerians themselves. And Nigerians themselves. And I want you to be mindful of this. Because change is not just on your billboards, change is in your attitude. If you want this nation to be right, we will know it by your attitude. If you want this nation to be good, we will know it by your attitude. We want terrorism to be out of this country. And I want to challenge every one of you in this place to lend a voice to the fight against terror. Lend your voice to the government when they speak against terror. It's over 150 something days now, and the Chibok girls are still in captivity in the hands of some mad men. Innocent girls who went to school. Innocent girls who owed them nothing. Report have that over 90% of the girls were Christian girls, forced to convert into another religion. Because Chibok is a highly Christian city. And that's why they choose Chibok as the target. And most of the girls in custody in Chibok, while we speak, were said and also believed to be believers and Christians. But that's not our problem only. Our problem is not whether Christians are those who are killed or whether Muslims are killed. Our problems are simple. Our problems is that we do not want terror in our country. We have seen Libya. We have seen Egypt. We have seen Yemen. We have seen Afghanistan. We have seen Iraq. We have looked across this country. We're seeing what is happening in Syria. We do not want the same thing to happen in Nigeria. We want our country. We want our nation, and we want our children to be able to go to school without being afraid of rockets dropping on their school when they're studying. We want our children, we want our loved ones to be able to walk the street without being afraid of bombs exploding in mines planted on the roads and the streets when they move. We need our country back. And because we need our country back, we need to speak against terror. Whoever supports them, whoever sponsors them, whoever pampers them is not a friend of a country. And it's not a Nigerian. It's an evil breed. And we believe God is going to bring us to the place where we have victory against the insurgents that have risen in this country. Maybe any other country haven't won, but we took a fight on Ebola when Ebola came into this country. When Ebola came into this country, we took a fight on it headlong. Many other countries suffered it, but we thank God that despite the differences we had in this country, we were able to kick that virus off the borders of Nigeria. I am believing God. The same victory will come with the insurgency. Whether they call it Boko Haram or whatever name it might be called, whether they call it militancy, that terror is going to leave the borders of this country. We as a church will play our part and make our roles. Make your voices heard. Because one soul you save today, you save a potential terrorist that would have been a terrorist in the future. Preach this gospel like you've never preached it before. Stand for righteousness. Don't give a bribe to anybody. Don't try to compromise your righteousness and your decency for anything else. Because when you do that, you lose your power to speak. You lose your integrity. And you lose your right to challenge unrighteousness. Genesis 24 verse 4 said, "But thou shalt go unto my country, into my kindred, and take a wife unto my son." Abraham was confident about his country, that he said, if there is a place that my son can have a wife, it will be my country. We have to come to that point where we put an end to brain drain, where Nigerians are struggling to marry out of the country because they want to have another visa. People trying to leave the country because they think the country is not good enough. We are asking for a season where people who belong to this country will start leaving the shores of their country to come back to this nation to help build this nation, so that every resource and plenty that God has given to us in this land, we will begin to make the most use of it. If China could change and turn around that country, Nigeria can do the same. All we need is our people to have a confidence in this nation. 54 years going, but I believe we can change in the next couple of years. If we can just come together and build this nation. Your knowledge is important and your wisdom is important. Do what you ought to do. Pay your taxes. Support your government. Be there. Go to work when you have to go to work. Contribute your ideas. Serve when you have to serve. When it's time for you to start your company, do so. Do your work with a passion. Because the country you leave behind today is the country that your children will inherit. The nation you leave behind today is the nation that your children will live with. If you don't think of yourself, think about your children. What kind of society would you want your child to grow in? Would you want your child to grow schooling next door to a terrorist? To a suicide bomber? Would you want your child to grow in a society where he can't even pay his fees? He can go through school. He gets dropped out. He's hanging out on the street when you are gone. Think about it. So many parents have left and their children are suffering for it because they lived by the moment. They took the bribes of the moment. They took the gift of the moment and sold their conscience and left behind a country that their families and their children are not proud of today. Don't do the same. The country you leave behind today, you leave it for your children. Those Nigerians in diaspora who only know how to post negative things about the country on Facebook fail to realize that whether they stay in UK or in France or in Japan, their village is in Nigeria. So they have a grandfather here or a grandmother here. They have a neighbor here. They have a village chief here. They might stay in those countries, but if they ever get deported, they will be sent back to this country. So anything they think they cannot support Nigeria to be good, one day they will pay their trip back to this nation. And guess what? It's the nation you leave behind you will be coming back to. Think about it. It's not just about posting trash on Facebook because you want some folks to change the country for you to come in. The same way you run looking for an oasis out there. You want to sit there and wait for somebody to create an oasis and a paradise for you here. I understand your worries. I understand how you can take corruption. But it is more needful if you also help the country fight against corruption. Not just by accusation, but by changing yourself and changing the next person to you. The accusations are more than what we're even doing to change anything. We've been finger pointing and nothing is changing. We've been finger pointing and nothing is changing. Country is still where it is. I believe our country is a blessed nation. I stand in this independent with a passion for my country. I believe Nigeria is blessed. I don't see Nigeria divide, not in the next couple of years. I see us get even stronger as a people. I see us getting stronger even as a people. This country is not going to split. It is a blessed nation. I read out from Psalm 33 verse 12. Psalm 33 verse 12 I say, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he hath chosen for his own inheritance. If God is in charge of Nigeria, Nigeria will be blessed. Think about it. No God-fearing ruler will want to rob this country of its wealth. No real born-again believer who is saved will want to go into government and take the resources of the people and stack them in foreign accounts. Nobody who fears the Lord and has regard for the people will do that. Will put thugs and militants to be in charge of our resources. Nobody. And that's why I say to you, should you have a God-fearing person come out to be the governor of River State, vote for that person. If that person is truly God-fearing, then you are lucky for it. If you have a God-fearing person that comes up to be the leader of this nation, vote for that person. Because then you know that you have a nation. But when we continue to look beyond and look into our pockets and look into the little stipends that we get and continue to heap the same set of people who have over time in a circle continue to impoverish this nation in the same loop, just because they give you a couple of handshakes, you are doing the nation the harm. You will come back to cry about it later, but you are a part of the problem. You can tell me, I am not, but you are. Your vote is. Your vote for or your vote against is a part of the problem. Your voice for and your voice against is a part of the problem. We are part of our problem. I am part of the problem we have today. You too, you're part of the problem. But what I'm saying is the problem has already been caused, but we can change it. We can change it. If we gather today to celebrate independence, we see a country under God. What are we independent from? We have to have our independence from poverty. We need to have our independence from being dependent on other countries to always bail us out every time. We need to be independent of borrowing and taking loans for everything in which we can generate our own revenues for within the borders of this country. We have to be independent of the mindset that enslaves us, that Nigeria cannot be a world power. We have to be independent from the whole sycophancy of trying to sing praises of people who continue to rob us blind, broad daylight. We have to be independent of that slavery mindset, the post-colonial or neo-colonial mindset in which we are subjecting ourselves to a new dimension of colonialism, where a few breeds of people have always been in power. It's either them or their children. Think about it. Have you read between the lines in Nigerian politics? Have you seen that it's the same names that have been coming in front of us in our faces year after year, 54 years going? Don't we have other Nigerians? Where is the church? Where are the believers? Oh, you say Christians ought not to be in politics. What is politics? Wherever there is a people, there is politics. Wherever people are being led, there is politics. In this church right now, because people are being led, there is politics. There is politics in your home. Oh, somebody said Jesus Christ was never involved in politics. He has a government. That's politics. He is Prince of Peace. That's politics. He is the King of Kings. That's politics. He is the Lord of Lords. That's politics. David was a king. That's politics. Joseph became a prime minister. That's politics. You can't change something when you don't get involved. You can sit at the back seat complaining how bad the driver is driving. If you don't like the way he's driving, get on the driver's seat. Put your hands on the steering wheel and start driving. Be a part of those who make good happen. Go in there. Want to make a choice of your job, occupation, filling your next jam form? Think about the country. The country you leave behind today is the country your children will move into tomorrow. One country under God. God bless Nigeria. God bless the president of this country. God bless the governors in this country. God bless all the leaders in this country. God bless those who have a determination in their heart to make this country a great nation. It is indeed an independence. We expect to be free from the poverty that has held us bound so long. We expect to be free from the illiteracy that has plagued our nation. We expect to be free from all kinds of dependence on other countries. God will grant us that independence. Beyond the ones we just celebrate, this country will find it even better. Hallelujah. How many of you believe God? One nation under God. Nigeria will love our country. And it's me that will make this country what the world will envy. Whether you are in the borders of this country or you are out of this country. Wherever you are, put in your best to make this country a great nation. Nigeria. I too do have a dream that my children will walk in a great Nigeria. That my children will school in a great Nigeria. That my children will live in a great Nigeria. That the things we do see happening in great nations will not just happen in this country, but will happen even more. That the time will come when people will not aspire to leave this country, but they will dream of coming into this country. All we have lost, we will regain. God bless our nation. God bless Nigeria. Let's rise up on our feet, great people, and pray for this nation and bless this country.